So this is where the fun begins, because this is not the biggest of tables. And we're trying to fit a twin-sized quilt into this space. So we're clearing the decks, give ourselves as much room as possible to try and squeeze this quilt in. Get rid of all this rubbish. So when you are doing this, when you're quilting, you want to give yourself as much space as possible to make it as easy as possible to maneuver the quilt around, because it gets pretty bulky pretty quickly. So first steps first, just going to shove this in here to hold it. We're going to find out where the last line of quilting was. So this is our last line here, which is kind of squint. I'm going to have to quilt along a line that I've already drawn, and then we're going to have to eyeball it to the end. And that should work. So I'm going to leave myself a nice long thread so that I've got something to tie off. Try and find a reasonable starting point. I'm thinking I want to go from the left of the quilt to the right of the quilt, so we'll do this way. I'm going to start on a seam because that gives me a straight line to work with, because I'm actually going to have to come down here without any guide until I get to this seam, and then pivot and come down that way. So a long seam, so I'm not using any starting or stopping knots. What I'll do is I'll hand tie these knots myself. The machine is set to finish with the needle down so that when I need to pivot, I don't lose my spot. So if we go down, we're right on that seam, that's really good. We're going to take it nice and slow because we're all tangled up with cables as well. So let's see. I'm not wearing quilting gloves. I should be wearing quilting gloves. How does that look before we go really far? Looks pretty good. I'm liking it. The stitch length is nice. It's looking even. It's on the line, so that's even better. Let's see. So we're coming, let's just double check. What is it to say? Measure twice, cut once. So we're coming down to this spot here off camera that you can't see. So we're just going to take it nice and easy. Coming to this spot here. So we're back onto a straight line again, and I can see that I've meandered away from a straight line because we're on the seam. So needles in the down position. Just lift the presser foot and then pivot. So now we've got the weight of the quilt on my knee. Looking good. Foot down again just to hold it in place, just to double check where we're going. So we're coming straight down here, all the way down, all the way down, all the way down, all the way down. Yeah, this is a long seam, okay. Let's go. So we're back onto a seam again, so I have a kind of a seam of the piecing to follow, which is keeping me somewhat straight. I do need some quilting gloves though, because the fabric is slidey, so I'm pushing from my shoulder, so it's going to be uncomfortable after a while. The nice thing is that this stitch length is pretty long, so it's going pretty quickly. So we're back onto seam again to keep me straight. I'm just going to pause here, the needle's down just to see where we're going. So we've still got about 10 inches to go. Try and pull off the threads as we go so they don't get sewn into the quilting. I'm going to pause again just to reposition, give myself plenty of space because we're almost where we want to be. We want to be right here. Nice and slow, just so we don't overshoot it. One more. Oh, perfect. Okay, good. So we've done this so far. We're going to needle up, press the foot up, we're going to pivot. So now the weight of the quilt is on the table, which is nice. Got a nice big throat space in the sewing machine, so we've got plenty of space to put this. Press the foot down. And so when I'm quilting, I'm trying to keep my eye on what's happening at the needle, but I'm also looking ahead as to what's happening because I want to make sure that any bumps or lumps or roadblocks that are coming up in the quilting, and what I can see already is that there is a safety pin here. So I'm going to take that out when I get closer to it, but it's like driving a car. You're kind of looking just a little bit ahead, but trying to keep like the instruments in your eye line. So I'm kind of looking at the needle, but keeping my eye on what's coming up. So let's just take this nice and slow down here because there's no seam to follow. So we're eyeballing a straight line. As soon as it gets too far, I can feel my shoulders getting tight. I just reposition my hands. Nice and easy. Back onto the seam now. We're coming up to this paper safety pin. So we're going to give ourselves plenty of space. Pop that out. Close it up so we don't stab ourselves with it. And put it over here in this bowl. Out the way. There's another one coming up. Looking forward down to where we're coming up to. Yep, so we've got about, 16 inches to go. And we have another safety pin in the way. There's a thread here, and I want to pull that out so it doesn't get stuck in the quilting. Just looking at a piece of quilting to the left here, which is a mess. It's miles away from the seam. However, done is better than perfect. So we're not going to worry about that. We're just going to keep going. I'm thinking about finding some quilting gloves though, because this is starting to get pretty uncomfortable. Back onto the seam again. A little bit squint, but we corrected it everywhere. Nice and easy. So we've got about 2 inches, 2.5 inches to go. Just to the edge of the block here. I'm going to slow down just so we don't go too far. One more stitch. Perfect. Now I can see already that there's a safety pin here. So I'm just going to take this out before I pivot. Make life easy for ourselves. Press the foot up. Oops. Pivot. Weight the quilt back on my leg again and some on the table. Press the foot down. So this is our last long full side, and we've got half the side left on the side. So we have taken a stitch too far. So as we take our first couple of stitches, we're just going to let it correct itself back onto the line. Heading straight for the seam. Good. I actually have a chalk line here because this was going to be part of my original quilt design. So this is helping to keep me straight because the weight of the quilt was actually pulling it squint. And so it's going to pull me in this direction. So just repositioning, making sure there's no weight hanging off the table. Just nice and easy. Bit of fluff. Looking ahead, nothing in the way. Reposition my hands. And this is where we stopped because we were about to go too far. I was aiming for this. I was aiming for this here. I actually want this one here that's right like 6 stitches away. So if I hadn't stopped, we would have found ourselves far too far past that line and then having to unpick stitches and go back. Okay, so we're right on the corner, which is where we want to be. And I will say this machine has a thing called dual feed built in, so at the back here you can't really see, but there's a little leg and it's like a walking foot and it pulls the fabrics through, so it's making sure that all 3 layers are going through nice and evenly like a walking foot does. So that makes it much easier to quilt. Without that it would be very heavy and you would feel like you'd have to push this through, but this does make short work of it. Okay, so we're looking ahead at where we're going. We have no line to guide us, and I can see that we're just a little bit off already. So we're going to have to just correct gently as we go, and then we're aiming to meet this seam here, and I do actually have a straight line. And you can't see what I'm talking about because it's off camera, but I'll show you when I get to it. So we're eyeballing, aiming for a seam. Not bad yet. Good, okay. So we're on to the final section here. Just reposition the quilt. So there is a straight line drawn on the quilt here, so that will make it nice and easy for me to try and meet up to the seam again. Almost there, we're on a straight line. I can see another quilting line over here that's gone totally squint, like it's almost a quarter of an inch away from the line. So that was probably the weight of the quilt pulled it down on one side and caused it to start skewing off this way as I was quilting it. So we're being very careful of that. We're keeping the weight up here and we're keeping the weight down here so that it's not pulling, and we're trying as much as we can to go as straight as we can. And I'm just going nice and slow here because we're coming back to where we started. And then one more. There we go. So we're back to the end. Now I'm not going to use the thread cutter here to cut this because I want a long thread. So I'm just going to pull my needle up with my presser foot. I'm going to pull it out, give myself a nice long thread, like say 6 inches on one side, and then underneath I'm going to pull out, oops, and then give myself about 6 inches as well. Okay, so now we're going to just have a little look and see what it looks like on the back, what we've just done. It looks good. Yeah, this looks great. Nice and even stitches. You can see I've given myself a nice long thread here to tie off and bury the knot. But it's looking good and it actually looks pretty straight. Excellent. So now we're going to go and find a flat space where we can put this out and we can have a look at the quilting and decide if we're going to continue to just mirror squares or if we're going to go back to doing squares on point. Because I think squares on point would be quite nice, but let's see what this looks like first. So you can see there how we've got the squares on point going like so, and how they're quite nice, and then we have these piano keys that we're trying to do in the middle. They're trying to get all fancy along here. But then you can see here like where the echoes of the squares start. And this bit here, this is what we just quilted. So the question is, do we then just do squares until we get to the point where we can't go square anymore, which is about, I think it's here, which leaves all that quilt left. So then we can just do straight lines across. Or do we do on point and take from here and do on point, which would then mean we would do diagonal lines. So essentially V shapes up. But you can see it's a good size quilt. It's a twin size. So I've got 2 of these, same pattern, identical. This here, sneaking on the bed. This is a future project video, and also another UFO that is 2 years old. Only 2.